To suggest the past few years have been challenging for Ottawa and its residents could be considered an understatement. Some might say an egregious one. What was a thriving, dynamic metropolis ranked the best place to live in Canada in 2017 suddenly was not. First, COVID hit, disrupting day-to-day life, including our collective mental and physical health in ways we had never experienced before. Then a truck convoy paralyzed and polarized the city, terrorizing downtown residents and further damaging small businesses already reeling from COVID. A highly touted multi-billion-dollar transit system hailed as a partial solution to gridlock and climate change literally came off the rails. In the spring of 2022, yet another freak weather event, this time not a flood or a tornado, but a derecho ripped through neighborhoods, causing catastrophic damage, further battering the already fragile collective psyche. These events and more have placed our local government squarely under the microscope, and there appears to be an appetite for change at City Hall. That appetite will be serviced today as Ottawa welcomes a new mayor and at least 11 new councillors, guaranteeing there will be fresh faces and presumably fresh ideas in the chambers of 111 Laurier. Against that backdrop, some 121 citizens put their names on the ballot, including a whopping 14 vying for the chain of office, worn for the last 15 years by Jim Watson. More than 85,000 people voted in the advance polls, and hundreds of thousands more today. So clearly, voters are engaged in this election, as they should be. What have they decided? Which candidates will emerge victorious? And who will lead us in the next civic government? These answers and more will be unveiled next on The Local Results. Well, good evening. A lot is going to change in our capital city tonight, and we are going to be here until there is a new mayor, and we have many local experts for you tonight. We are going to be here with some of the most influential people in terms of depth of knowledge. My name is Kimothy Walker. One of the first jobs I had was an election researcher more than 3 decades ago for a man named Max Keeping. I would like to introduce to you the panel that I am going to be with, and my partner Derick Fage is going to be with a group of community leaders, and we are also going to be partnered with on the French side here at Rogers Television, some leaders. But first I would like to introduce to you the panel that I am going to be with. So I kind of liken it to the band is back together. With me is going to be Chris Day, who I worked with for many, many years. And Chris Day is, of course, a former journalist, but also worked at Ottawa City Hall. The depth of knowledge that you bring to us, Chris, thank you very much for being here tonight. But you have been at City Hall. You were, of course, with me at another television station.
Indeed, one that's not doing live results all night, which I should point out.
We're going to be here with live results all night, but you also were part of the transition for a mayor, Larry O'Brien, to Jim Watson. You've advised city managers, senior leaders, ministers, and you were also with various levels of government. Alison Fair, also one of my former colleagues. Thank you for being here. You worked with Chris Day, also media and communications consultant with Blue Sky Strategy Group, and you were also with CTV's Parliamentary Bureau. You were also a pivotal senior journalist with decision making, and you may have seen her recently, of course, on television. And we are a capital, so you're also going to fill a bit of a bridge for us tonight with what that means for us, because as a capital city, we have 4 levels of government. And speaking of levels of government, Mark Taylor, you are now with the United Way as a vice president, but you are a former deputy mayor, but also a councillor, and you're going to bring to this panel tonight a bit of an understanding of what this is like, and you're going to fill in for us as we see results coming in, what that means in terms of this group needs to work together.
A recovering politician.
A recovering politician. But first, we're going to talk to Derick about what you're going to bring, my friend, to the team, and what the role for you is tonight with our community leaders, because that is so important about everybody that voted, because this is going to be historic.
Yeah, a change election. I mean, that's what so many people are calling it, Kimothy, and you're right. We wanted to get different perspectives from community members, different organizations. So on the show, joining me in this panel on the other side of the room here at Rogers TV, I'm going to be joined by Meg McCallum. She's the interim executive director of the Alliance to End Homelessness here in Ottawa. An excellent perspective because, you know, talking about housing affordability, certainly homelessness, these are issues we've heard throughout the entire campaign. Matt Luloff is going to be joining us as well. He'll bring a perspective from youth engagement. Have our youth been engaged enough? Have we heard enough from various candidates on, you know, other than, you know, bringing down fees when it comes to recreational activities and that kind of thing with the City of Ottawa? We haven't heard many of these candidates, or, you know, whether it's a city council candidate or mayoral candidates, talking about our youth. So excited to speak to him. Rachel Wilson, the CEO of the Ottawa Food Bank, of course, food insecurity, homelessness. We're seeing the numbers are greater and greater, so we're going to get that perspective as well. Carla Briones, she is the CEO of Carla Briones Consulting, also owns some small businesses here in the Ottawa area. So again, getting a different perspective from the small business community. Robin Brown, co-founder and coordinator of 613-819 Black Hub, will be here talking about diversity and or lack thereof diversity around the city council table. Also passionate about environmental issues. We'll get that perspective. Su-Ling Ching, President and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade, joining us again. A business perspective. What are we hearing from small businesses? Su-Ling Ching has so many contacts here in the Ottawa area, so really looking forward from that perspective. And finally, David Jeans, Director of Transport Action Canada. What's another big issue? LRT, public transit, our bus system, the schedules that people have been frustrated with. So those are the types of perspectives we're going to get from our community panel. Kimothy, back to you and your panel.
Okay, I'm actually going to reverse the order a little bit now, because I want to start with Mark, because Mark, a lot of councillors are leaving and a mayor is leaving. What does that look like, first of all, because this is historic, how many new faces are joining us? Just quickly, the three of you, what are you looking for tonight in terms of new faces coming on?
I think the biggest thing, Kimothy, is trying to get a sense of how well this council, this new council, is going to be able to work with each other. I mean, personalities around the table are so important. You know, politics is a people-first business. And part of the big challenge working with people, all people, including constituents and other members of your council, is the ability to work within yourself to sometimes see perspectives that are different from your own, to be able to kind of find, if not common ground, certainly middle ground, and be able to navigate those discussions, because municipally, it's really a practical exercise. Government is a practical exercise, and there's absolutely room for vision, but everybody has to be able to work together. Even when they disagree, they have to be able to do it without being disagreeable. So that's what I'm going to be looking for.
Allison, and do they have to work with other levels of government?
They definitely do. You know, we are in the unique position of being a capital city, and they have 4 levels of government, I would say, including Indigenous. I know that's not there, but we have to start thinking about that as we move towards reconciliation. But yeah, we have the federal government, the NCC, which is a offshoot of the federal government. We have Ontario provincial government. And so all of these governments need to come together, because as we saw in the last year or so, there's been a lot of dysfunction when it comes to whose jurisdiction is this. And that's where it becomes complex in this city.
Yeah.
Right, and actually we're going to hear from Mathieu Fleury very, very shortly, but Chris, quickly, lots of new people. How fast can they get up to speed?
Well, that's going to be the real challenge, I think. There are some huge issues that the city is dealing with. This was going to be a change election even before Jim Watson and the 8 councillors that aren't running decided not to run. There are some big issues that they need to get their heads around very quickly, and that's going to be the test of the new council.
How fast can you train them?
Well, I mean, there's a team at City Hall that prepares for these transitions exactly.
Okay.
Very, very good. And it will be up to the senior leadership and the clerk's office and various others to get these people grounded in the basic rules of how that place works.
Okay.
And show them where the bathrooms are, show them where the cafeteria is, and how to hire staff, and get their heads around these giant issues that they're going to have to handle on behalf of 1 million people.
Okay, well, Mathieu Fleury is leaving, and he was a very influential councillor and very key to the entire situation that we had with the truckers. And Derick interviewed him just a short time ago, and here he is.
Thanks very much, Kimothy, and I'm here with a very familiar face to Ottawa residents, in particular those in the ward of Rideau Vanier. Mathieu Fleury joins me, outgoing councillor. You're still a councillor, right? Rideau Vanier.
Until November 14th, but tonight's a big night. Tonight's a real big night for Ottawa.
It is a big night. Let's talk about the campaign in general. I'd like to talk about, the lead mayoral candidates, and both Mark Sutcliffe and Catherine McKinney. How do you think those campaigns have gone so far?
I think they're two amazing people.
Yeah.
It's really a change campaign. We have new energy. There'll be 11 new councillors. There'll be a new mayor. And I think that brings a lot of appetite. So there's been a lot of elements that are discussed, really, really in-depth financial areas, really in-depth on transit, really in-depth on housing, and then some ideas out there that have flowed through the campaign, both campaigns. So I think voters of Ottawa who've come out today know who they're voting for. They're comfortable with the range of policies that either Catherine, Mark, and in some instances maybe Bob. Yeah. I think that's kind of the top three, but it will come down to Mark or Catherine this evening.
Do you think Ottawa residents have been more engaged than ever before? And it's hard to judge. I mean, if you look on social media, that's one thing, right? But that's not necessarily reality. But do you think in general, Ottawa residents are more engaged this time?
15% of residents in Ottawa are on Twitter. So just to give you a sense, right, with the feeling, when we look at these tweets, you imagine how many people see it, you think it's a lot. The reality is, unless there's a candidate at a door, or if there's a pamphlet or a particular news coverage or article, that's the real engagement, is really each door matters. So it's going to be interesting to, at the end, find out what tactics were used in the back end. Right now, we're looking at the campaign from what we saw and doing analysis on commitments, promises, mistakes maybe, and opportunities along the way. I think it comes down to, were these campaigns financed? Did they use new tactic to identify voters? And were they effective today in bringing out their vote to the poll?
What do you think about Rideau Vanier? That ward, when
There'll be a new councillor.
Yeah, I hear that. But what do you think about, there's 10 candidates
here.
Right, there's 10 candidates there. Have you been impressed with what you've seen?
No. Okay. No, because many people put their name on a ballot, great people, but did not knock on doors. If you put your name forward, you have to knock on doors. That's always been my philosophy, no matter if I support your policies or if I support you or not. Tonight, it's going to come down to two young moms that are very impressive. We have Laura Chance, who's supported by Horizons Ottawa, and we have Stéphanie Plante, who's, again, both are very involved in different ways. So Laura, more involved on cycling, more involved on transit. Stéphanie, more involved on community, particularly park renewal. She's on the parent council at Franco Jeunesse. So yeah, you have two good leaders, really two good options. It's going to come down to vote splitting for the other 10 candidates. I assume, just by how I read those, a long list of candidates, you might see up to 500 votes here and there for the remainder. But it's going to come down to Stéphanie and Laura. What's been interesting, as you know, I follow these things inside and out, is The advance polls, they were lower than when I ran. So 2,500 less votes in advance polls in Rideau Vanier than in previous wards. So how will that play out in the end? Will those voters who usually come out early come out to vote? I think there's a number of reasons for that. I think there is a voter that wanted to see the full outcome of the mayoral race prior to voting in advance polls. So, and I think the other one is the mobilization. How many doors were the candidates at?
You know, on behalf of everyone here at Rogers TV, thanks so much for your service. I know you remain a councillor, as you said, until mid-November, but really appreciate you. You've always engaged with us, and we really appreciate your time again today.
Thanks for having me on. And good evening, everyone. It's going to be exciting.
It is. It's going to be exciting. And as you know, Kimothy, it's going to be exciting as those results keep coming in. They're going to come in very shortly. Back to you in the panel.
One of the other things that we're going to be doing tonight, in addition to our panel here and all of the community members that Derick will be speaking to, is we have live coverage in the field all night long. You can turn to us for all of your breaking information. We're also going to be streaming. If you have to step away, you can always go to the website. So right now, we can give you a look at some of the information in the field that we're going to be bringing to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dan Mooney in front of the Vimy Bridge in Barrhaven. Barrhaven East is a brand new constituency set up due to the fact that previous incumbents Carol Ann Meehan and Jan Harden had decided not to run in this year's municipal election. It looks like it's turning out to be a four-person race in Barrhaven East. Atik Qureshi, Richard Garrick, Wilson Lowe, and Pat Brennan all vying for a spot at City Council. And while Mark Sutcliffe or Catherine McKinney will be very, very pleased as the mayor tonight, there will be one extra person just as happy in Barrhaven East.
In College Ward 8 at Lane Johnson's election night headquarters, everybody is so excited to see who the new face will be elected tonight. There's also another very popular candidate in this ward, Pat McGarry. Either way, there will be a new candidate in College Ward tonight.
Hi, I'm Sarah Nyango. I'm coming to you from the Clock Tower Brew Pub on Tring Road. We are in Ward 19, which is Orleans, South Navan, and this is where Catherine Kitts is going to be arriving to speak to her supporters once the results are in. So we're going to be talking to her. We're going to be talking to some of her supporters and get their reaction to what happened tonight.
I'm here at Catherine McKinney's headquarters on Laurier Avenue at the All Saints event space. A few supporters here so far, but I do expect things will start to fill up quite soon. And we have learned that Catherine McKinney won't actually be coming out until after the results are in. The first thing they will be doing is a speech. So a lot to look forward to here tonight, and we'll check in with you later.
This is Kurt Studley at Mark Sutcliffe headquarters. Tonight, he will be here a little later after he gets a look at the early results from the mayoral's race. Of course, Sutcliffe involved in a heated race. Many expect this to be very close between he and Catherine McKinney, but just like everyone else, he has to wait for the votes to be counted.
This is Julie Buin at Queen Street Fair, where 3 wards, 12, 14, and 17, are being represented by Laura Shantz, Ariel Troster, and Sean Menard. They're gathering here with their followers, and we're going to be checking in with them and you in a little bit.
Well, we're absolutely delighted to see all of the familiar faces tonight. We're all here in the studio. Very excited to bring all of this to you tonight. But right now, for some more familiar faces, we're going to go back to Derick with our community panel. It's like old home week.
I know, it's amazing. This is great.
We're excited.
We are excited, and excited to have this community panel because, as I said, we're going to be getting some different perspectives throughout the night. And I'm joined right now by Meg McCallum. She's the Interim Executive Director of Alliance to End Homelessness Ottawa. Meg, welcome to the show. Great to have you here. And Matt Luloff, he is the founder of Presidential, which is a youth and community development organization. Manuk, thank you so much. Probably familiar to Rogers TV viewers as well with the Overbrook show. It's great to have you here and your perspective as well. Meg, I'll start with you. I know that you hosted a debate through the Alliance. What did you take away from that debate?
Well, we hosted a debate with the leading mayoral candidates, and it was an hour-long event and it focused on the 6 platform planks of our Starts With Home campaign that were developed by housing experts. So these are solutions that we're offering to candidates to say, this is what needs to be done to end homelessness in our city. So it was really interesting to see all the different mayoral candidates that we had come out and give such thoughtful answers. There was a lot of support for a lot of the planks that we had. There's some things that are easier that everyone can just get on board with, some things that are harder.
Right.
But it was really interesting to see the thoughtfulness and the care that people were putting into their answers and what they are looking forward to getting into as the mayor of our city.
Meg, for people that aren't familiar with those platforms that you have, and I know that you engaged councillors, you engaged mayoral candidates as well. What are those platforms?
Well, basically, it comes down to 3 basic things. We need to stop the loss of the affordable housing that we have. We need to create more affordable housing, and including a for Indigenous, by Indigenous housing strategy. And we need to preserve the quality of the housing that we've got. And that comes down to things like building new housing, having rent supplements for people who are in housing now that they just can't afford, protecting tenants who are being rent-evicted or dem-evicted, and licensing landlords so that we can help protect tenants, but also provide small landlords with the possibility of grants to help them do needed repairs.
And Manuk, we wanted you on because, I think young people get left out of the conversation often when it comes to whatever election, whether it's federal, provincial, or municipal. With the youth engagement that you have in this city, Manuk, what have you heard from young people? Are they engaged at all in this election?
I think they're more engaged than ever. I'm not sure if that's going to make them go out there and vote specifically, but I do know that we are starting to see how important municipal elections are in terms of change.
What would you like to hear? What haven't you heard from candidates, whether they're mayoral candidates, city councillor candidates, even school board trustees, that you would have loved to have heard during all of these months now? We've been campaigning since August the 19th. What has been missing from some of those platforms in regard to our youth here in Ottawa?
It's a really good question. A really good question. I won't say what's really missing, but what I haven't heard is just how we're going to really bring more resources to these communities, right? I think right now with inflation, food is very expensive right now, and crime is rising, right? And what are we going to do to address these things? What are we going to do to address the traumas that are happening within our inner city communities? That's kind of what I'm hearing a lot of right now.
Meg, as this campaign has gone along, again, same question for you. You've mentioned some of those key points to, the things you'd like to see targeted. What's been the biggest challenge that you think you haven't heard enough about?
I think, similar to Manuk, it's not what I haven't been hearing, but just what I want to hear more.
Right.
I want to hear more about the solutions that are out there. Housing is a really big issue because of the economic situation that we're in, the impacts that we've seen from COVID. There's so many things that have been happening in our civil society in the last 2 years that have made the game change so much. There's so much moving around. And so we really need to see solutions that focus on systems level change and that are going to help make a big impact. And there are things that the municipal government can do particularly, and that we're looking forward to the new council digging into.
Well, what kind of relationship does the Alliance have with the city?
Well, we are a nonpartisan organization that is community funded. We are a membership-based organization, and we work in partnership with the city on systems planning at the Community Advisory Board on homelessness issues. And then we work in advocacy on issues that are coming to City Council, like inclusionary zoning.
Right.
That's going to be a big one in the first year of the new council.
Manuk, engagement again is something important that you touched upon, but I wanted to go a little bit more in depth and talk about what you do with presidential. Working with youth, for people that aren't familiar with the organization, just tell us how you engage with youth in the community.
We engage in many different ways. Actually, Recently, we had a Peace in the Streets event where we got 10 different communities together, bringing awareness around gun violence and what's kind of happening in our neighborhood, right? We wanted to show the youth that you can feel safe traveling within different communities and also just come and build community with us, right? We released something called The Conversation, where we're tackling mental health right now. And I think like right now we're engaging so many different ways, but it's kind of what Meg said, like the game has changed. You know, so you're asking, what aren't we seeing? We're not seeing accountability right now. You know, we are funding organizations at this point right now, but where is the accountability on how they manage those resources and what impact they're having within our communities? We're not seeing that at this point.
What about policing, right? We've heard a lot about policing, right? We've heard, you know, about defunding the police, perhaps freezing the police budget, putting some of those funds into more, social workers, social services, that kind of thing that's funded by the city. What kind of relationship does the BIPOC community, do youth have with the police right now, and what needs to be done to perhaps bridge some of that divide?
That's a very big question. I'm not going to speak on the entire BIPOC community, but what I will say is that we need to move forward with the model that allow police to police. You know, I think there's so much things that are happening in our communities that can be solved without policing. And we need to be able to give the communities the tools where those things can be solved, such as therapy. Therapy is a huge issue right now. If we can get therapy in the neighborhoods, do you know how much lives we would save? Mm-hmm. So if we can just allow the police to police and allow other organizations and other different institutes to also come into the hood to help us, then I think that would be really good.
Yeah, and Meg, I don't think people have a good understanding of, you know, the numbers when it comes to homelessness here in Ottawa. And we look at it from different perspectives of, you know, how many people are living in that situation where they're very far from having an opportunity to find, a regular place to live. What are the numbers and what are some of the solutions? We have Catherine McKinney saying that they will end homelessness in 4 years. Is that even realistic?
Well, so on any given night in the city of Ottawa, we have approximately 2,000 people experiencing homelessness, and that can include up to 300 families. That's a horrible number, especially for a city like Ottawa that has so many blessings and is so fortunate. So that's something that we really need to work on. And if we commit the resources, then certainly we can eliminate chronic homelessness. So the other number that I would point to is 55,000 people who are in Ottawa who are experiencing core housing need. These are people who can't find housing that is either affordable or suitable, safe, accessible, and they are either living in places that are overcrowded, that are unaffordable, or that are unsafe. And in addition to that, there's about another 50,000 that aren't even counted in the census who are experiencing housing precarity. So that's over 100,000 residents of Ottawa who are not suitably housed. And those are the people that we really need to find solutions for. Yeah, those numbers, I think, for a lot of people at home, probably they think those are staggering numbers. And as you said, in a city like Ottawa, it's really disappointing. Right? Really disappointing to hear. Let's head back to Kimothy and her panel. Kimothy, over to you.
What we're going to actually look at right now, Derick, are some of the wards and races to watch because there's so much new that's going to happen. So I'm going to turn it over to the three. Well, I'm going to stay involved in the conversation, obviously. By
all means.
Yeah, I'm going to sit back and relax while you just discuss amongst yourselves. But we were talking, Derick, you were talking about the issues in the community. We're going to talk about some of the people tonight that want to represent this community. And there are a lot of really exciting wards to watch. And we want to remind everybody that because of record-breaking advanced polling and because of the way that it works, we're going to have results very early tonight. But there are some really exciting wards happening. Some because of returning people coming out, like Doug Thompson. Yeah. But first let's start with you because Mark, you've actually run before and won. What are you really looking forward to tonight?
Well, you just mentioned Doug Thompson.
Doug,
I mean,
yeah.
Osgood's a good ward to watch, and you've got an existing councillor there in George DeBruce who has a very strong constituency, has a strong core of support. I mean, Doug was councillor there, and of course, mayor of Osgood before. Who there's a strong Doug component. So, are people going to go with traditional or more traditional? Choose the existing councillor or go back in time. Another ward, to watch is Riverside South, Findlay Creek. And, if you're looking at that, can a previous councillor make a return, right? You've got Steve DeRoche trying to make a return there in Riverside South, Findlay Creek. But you've got some strong new folks like Zainab Al-Salihi, who, has been out really working hard and, connecting with the community.
As I said, I saw her yesterday in front of the grocery store.
There you go.
With her team. And they
Because that's your community, isn't it?
Not my community,
Okay.
but I just happened to be passing through and stopped in the grocery store that was closest. But no, mine is the newly named Rito Jock, which was Scott Moffat's. He's leaving. So, we have a plethora of new candidates there that we all have got, had to come to know the names. And it'll be interesting to see who this area decides to. Do they take someone who has experience in City Hall, or do they take the candidates who are there for the pure reason of making sure that their voices are heard?
Right, and Chris, you and I both have a councillor leaving.
Yeah.
Because my councillor is running for mayor.
Right.
So
I'm looking at 3 wards where there is no incumbent.
right.
There is a Horizon Ottawa candidate that's being supported.
That's a player tonight, too.
And I think that's something to watch, as to see whether or not in College Ward, in Knoxdale Merivale, and in Rideau Vanier, huge slates of candidates. Right. One has the backing of what is essentially a U.S.-style super PAC in Horizon Ottawa, and others have different constituencies that are supporting them. Be very interesting to see tonight, I think, how that all shakes out and who will be around the table with a new mayor.
And interesting to see if, to your point about Horizon, whether it's a super PAC or a de facto political party, because in many respects they've behaved like one, when the dust settles at the end of the night, is it going to be the case that Horizon made a substantive difference and a lot of their candidates got elected, in which case you could probably attribute that to the work that they put in, or 1 or 2 of their candidates got elected, and that's probably more reflective of that candidate, outworked everybody else in their ward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think any of the candidates can be accused of not having worked to get the votes that they're going to get tonight, but certainly having that backing and having people come into your ward, support you, have that guaranteed, canvas contingent and supported announcements, et cetera, that's not to be discounted, for sure.
And get out the vote effort.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to ask you, because I went on Facebook yesterday and said, I don't know who the mayor is going to be at the end of this night.
Do any of us?
Do any of you?
No.
Well,
it's too close.
The mayor at the end of tonight will be Jim Watson, but on November 14th.
Yes.
Okay, so the mayor-elect. Do any of you have a feeling?
No, I think that there is some momentum in Camp Sutcliffe.
Yes.
But whether or not that's enough, I have no idea.
No, and it'll be interesting to see to that point, because the race has been so close this whole election campaign, how much an effect of the undecided voter will be. Yeah. Because we started 2 weeks ago with the Main Street and the Nanos polls saying 30 to 35% to 25 to 35% were undecided. Now, the latest poll as of yesterday was 14%. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how that, and if the campaigns were able to do what they wanted to do and attract those undecided voters.
Okay, but a question for you, Mark, does whoever wins tonight have a real problem with suburban, rural, urban divide? Whoever wins tonight.
Listen, I think given the dynamics of the mayoral race, whoever wins tonight, they're going to have work to do to stitch together. Ottawa's an incredibly big and very complicated city to begin with. Okay. We're the largest rural municipality certainly in Ontario. I think one of the ones in Canada, and that's you don't think of Ottawa in that respect. But
no, we're huge. Yeah.
We're huge. Yeah. So I think whoever wins tonight they're going to have work to do both around the council table and within the community. I noted that Mark Sutcliffe, I was watching on Twitter, and he did 24 wards in 48 hours kind of thing, which is almost a very U.S. election style.
He's also a marathon runner, though. I mean,
I don't think he ran, though, to be fair. But that's a very kind of, I think, thoughtful approach at, he was cognizant of the fact that he needs to have that, that ability to stitch together all the wards, and he was trying to make that case that I'm going to be here, I'm going to be there, I'm going to be everywhere. I think he was trying to lean into the fact that there's been this assertion that Catherine is only going to be a downtown mayor if they're elected. Right. And so I think they do have a lot of work to do.
Well, and I think that they have been trying to, and Catherine, they are trying to get outside of the core. I think right now, speaking of wards, I think we're going to go back to some of our locations right now. And a very close location, Derick, being right here.
Hey, how are you? It's good to see you over there.
Hi.
Yes.
You're so close to me right now, in my heart, always.
Thank you, Kimothy.
And we're going to be getting results. Oh my gosh, it's 8:05. The excitement.
No, and the excitement is felt just as I'm sitting here with my guests. I'm joined again by Meg McCallum, Interim Executive Director of the Alliance to End Homelessness, and Matt Luloff, who is the founder of Presidential. And I'm glad you stuck around, because you hear that panel talking about the mayoral candidates. Does the Alliance endorse candidates at all, Meg?
No, we don't.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah. We have a platform that we've put forward called our Starts With Home platform, and we've asked candidates to endorse that. So we sent a survey out to all candidates for ward and mayoral positions, and we've had endorsements from candidates across all of Ottawa's wards, including mayoral candidates.
That must have been encouraging.
Very encouraging.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to go back to policing for a moment, Manuk, because you and I were talking off camera, and you were mentioning, when you were growing up in the neighborhood you grew up in, you saw a cruiser on, every few blocks, right? Mm-hmm. And CCTV cameras were around, and things like this, right? And I think that adds to some of the distrust. And we've heard from mayoral candidate Mark Sutcliffe that he wants to, hire more police officers, put a community police station down in the Byward Market. Do you think that serves the community in any way?
I guess I would have to ask Mark, what is the reason behind policing within the market? Because I know a lot of problems that are happening in the market have to do with mental health. Mm-hmm. Have to do with food insecurity. And I think they lead to crime. But if we address the root issue, I think we won't need to spend millions of dollars on putting more police stations around the city.
On the topic of mental health, I know you touched on it earlier, but what are you hearing from youth? This has been a difficult time. We're coming out of the pandemic. We had an occupation. You and I, our wards are right beside each other, mm-hmm. right? And we were right in the midst of it for that period of time. Yeah. When you speak to youth and losing that social aspect of schooling and all of those things, how are young people being affected in the community?
This is a very interesting time. Honestly, I don't want to get very dark and gloomy, mm-hmm. but in the last, let's say in the last year, I've looked 2 youth in the eye that have committed suicide.
Really?
And I've seen it on their face before it even happened. And I literally wish till this day that I just pulled them aside and I said something to them, right? So I understand right now that people are not okay. And people are not okay. If I had the ability to allocate funding in the right way, I'm telling you, what we need right now is therapy. We need a lot of therapy, the right people that come from the same communities that we come from and experience same lived experiences, offering these resources, mm-hmm. not just anybody, right?
Right. Meg, I see you're nodding this entire time as Manuk talks, because I think there are a lot of misconceptions of how people find themselves, living on the streets, how our homeless end up in those positions, and maybe this is a good opportunity for you to sort of talk about some of those misconceptions.
I just want to start by saying that it's so hard to hear about people choosing, people not being able to continue living their lives, mm-hmm. People giving up. and I think as a society, it's just been so stressful over these last few years. We've been through so much together, but not really together.
Yeah.
And yes, there are issues that affect people experiencing homelessness, like mental health issues and substance use issues. But the one main driver, of course, is poverty, right? That people just can't afford to find a home and to feed themselves, or afford therapy if that's, if you can't find something for free. And I want to pull up a little bit and say that yes, it's individuals who are experiencing these issues, but it's not a personal failure, it's a policy failure, because all of these systems are set up by governments. Some of them lie at the municipal level, some of them are at other levels, but it's the system that has allowed us to get to this spot in time.
Yeah, and we have great organizations, in this community that help those that are homeless and living with any type of mental challenge and addictions. But it seems that it's broken, right? We've used the same kind of institutions to feed people and to house people in on a day basis, overnight, and then they're back on the street. The Salvation Army, what they want to build on Montreal Road has gotten a lot of talk. As far as the Alliance is concerned, how do we get away from what we've been doing and making sure we put something in place that's actually going to finally help?
Yeah. Well, if you put it in the big picture historical perspective, after the Second World War, when soldiers were coming back, service people were coming back from the Second World War, the Canadian government, through CMHC, built over 1 million houses in about a decade and a half across the country. And that was when the population of Canada was only 9 million people. So that's a big, bold solution, but we can all picture those war houses, those little houses. We did that as a country. That was a policy decision that was made. It had a huge impact on the housing situation and on the affordability for people returning from war who had experienced trauma, who needed to find new jobs, and who didn't have stable income and needed to relaunch themselves. So we can do that again.
Yeah, and that takes every level of government, right? We need to, we're in a unique situation here in Ottawa where we have a municipal government, a provincial government, a federal government, we have the NCC, all of these different levels need to work together to make big changes. I want to thank you both for joining us. Really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much. Let's go back to Kimothy. Kimothy, do we have any results coming in yet?
Not yet, but it's very close to those early results coming in. Why, dear panel, do you think there was so much interest in this? Was it the truckers? Was it we were on the national stage? What sparked so much interest? Just any of you jump in.
I think it came down to the fact that we were not, or the mayor we've had for 12 years was leaving. And now it was this spark. We've seen this going for a while, this need for change. We want to see the past, brought in with new. And then all the LRT issues. As someone who takes the LRT to work on a daily basis, the frustration there just to see this actually work. And I think those are the two things that really got people passionate about this election, at least from my point of view.
The state of city services absolutely has fired people up. When I was at the city, Kent Kirkpatrick...
It was all better.
Kent Kirkpatrick... but
Everything was better when Chris was at the city.
I had nothing to do with that. But Kent Kirkpatrick used to say there were 96 million customer interactions with the city every single day.
Okay.
So from turning on a tap, taking a bus, turning on a light switch, et cetera, on it goes, right? Using a road, et cetera. And 96 million customer interactions is 96 million opportunities for something to go wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. The problem is that right now, a lot of those interactions are going wrong.
Yes.
And so I think the reason this was a change election, even before half of council said they weren't running again and the mayor said he wasn't running again, is because people are saying, when is it enough that we should demand better and get better?
Exactly, and how, I keep paying taxes,
Right.
and they keep rising, and when am I going to see results for that?
Like, give me an LRT that works.
Yep.
Keep the yahoos out of downtown. Do your job.
Yep.
And
let me
I think
commute.
you're. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, and let me commute from my rural riding to in a decent amount of time that I'm not complaining it's like Toronto.
Yeah.
I think you're both right. There's a lot of things going on with the dynamics of city services, the state of the city at the moment that are driving people. As you said, it's a change election. That was always going to fire up a lot of people to become engaged. I think, too, we talked a little bit about the convoy and the occupation. Don't forget we're coming out of a pandemic, and where we are on the exit of the pandemic. I think we could argue that all night. But Ottawa, for all of the challenges we faced and all the successes that we've had, the convoy and the pandemic and its impact on Ottawa were outsized, right? Yeah. Ottawa has always been blessed in many respects by being a little bit insulated, largely because of the large federal civil service employment base here. We haven't had those same peaks and valleys that many other Canadian cities have. Pandemic changed that. Convoy changed that.
Absolutely.
Right.
And people really wanted to see their civic government step up, and they're still wanting to see what's our recovery plan from the pandemic. Yeah. What kind of community rebuilding? I mean, Derick was talking earlier to Meg McCallum from the Alliance to End Homelessness. Affordable housing, if it was a problem before, but if it didn't appear to people to be a problem before, it certainly did now.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, though, what does this mean for the legacy of Jim Watson?
I think it's a very challenging legacy for him, honestly. He's done a lifetime of public service. And
truly a lifetime.
Seriously, and the longest serving mayor.
Other than the Tourism Commission.
Right.
It has been
some time on a TV station, but yes.
Yeah.
But he has had, and the longer you're in office, the more of a record you have and you have to defend.
Right.
That's true for anybody.
But if you left when you built Lansdowne Park, that's a lot different than leaving
the LRT
now.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
And I think probably the first person to realize that is Mayor Watson himself.
Right. So is that sad, Mark?
I think you always want to. I'm not a gymnast, but I think the term is
a gymnast. A gymnast.
I think the term
is a new phrase for me. A gymnast.
I think the term is stick the landing, right? You really want to stick the landing. Is that the term?
Yeah, no, it is. But the fact that it's Jim Watson.
GYM.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
A gymnast.
Okay, got you.
I know I wasn't even going there.
I know for a fact that the mayor is laughing at home right now. A gymnast. This is amazing. I love this.
Well, I think regardless of the unintentional pun, I think you want to stick the landing. Right?
Yes.
So he would have loved to have left office with a fully functional LRT, the city in a good state of repair, and economy that was prosperous.
Not just having done testimony as well, which reminded everybody what we all just went through with the truckers.
Yeah, but we don't always get to pick all of these things. Arguably, you can say, to what extent was the mayor involved in the things that went wrong with the LRT? But he wasn't involved in the pandemic, certainly in our response.
No, we can't blame, no.
So I think some of these things will, over time, they'll kind of heal and wash away, and his record will, people will stop viewing it through that lens.
Right.
Other things, well, let's see what the outcome of the LRT inquiry is. That I think he'll wear one way or the other. But at the end of the day, like most people who've served a long time in office, over time, I think he'll be judged on the totality of his record, not on the last, year to year and a half.
And I think if you're looking at that totality for the past 12 years, it really actually has been a good run for Watson.
There was another mayorship before that as well. There was another city before that, before amalgamation.
Exactly.
And that's why this is such a big event tonight, because since amalgamation, this is in all of the elections that in the 30 plus years I've been covering elections, this is the biggest thing since amalgamation.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, and I honestly think...
I think I'm older than all of you.
By much.
I don't believe it.
But I honestly think if you look at those 12 years and then the 3 years prior, his 15 years have actually, overall, average-wise, I think are really solid. It's just unfortunate that the past 2-3 years have been really hard on him and the city.
You all know I live at Lansdowne Park, and every time I walk by the cattle castle, I think how hard he fought for the Aberdeen Pavilion, and I walk by that beautiful structure that I think there were 30-something votes as to, do we save it? Do we not save it? Do we save it? And I think I went to half of those as a young reporter, and I think how beautiful that structure is.
Right.
And I think about that would have been a high note, right? I think right now, actually, we're going to hear from one of the council. Is this a good time to go to Councillor Kitts? Yep. Okay. Here we go.
Kitts, you're here on election night, finally. Tell us what you're feeling as you await the results.
I feel really good. I have a great team behind me. We've worked incredibly hard the last 6 months, so I'm very excited that the day is finally here, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work really hard for my ward, which is newly named Orleans South Navan.
Well, that was a short little clip, wasn't it? But I mean, there was a new councillor who made profound changes in just a short period of time. Are we going to Derick now? Because I know that we have some new guests here, and Derick, 2 profound city builders, and I know that you have 2 women with you now in this next hour, and we're going to have results in this next hour. So this is extremely, extremely exciting.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Kimothy. And as you said, 2 wonderful leaders here in our community. First up is Rachel Wilson, CEO of the Ottawa Food Bank. Rachel, welcome. Great to have you here. And Carla Briones from Carla Briones Consulting, also a small business owner. Great to have you and your perspective here as well, Carla.
Thank you, Derick.
Carla, I'll start with you. Let's talk about being a business person. You've written some very powerful articles for the Ottawa Citizen, and I think you have felt as a small business person, you have felt let down from this council, what we've just been discussing. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what's been disappointing from your perspective from the council that we're seeing. New faces are coming, but what are some of the mistakes in the past?
This is a tough question, putting me on the spot here, but it's been disappointing. I'm gonna talk about the last couple of years that have been the most, they've been one of the most stressful years for all small business owners. And I think what's been fairly disappointing, it's been the leadership in showing or letting small businesses know, particularly those small businesses that are having to close down because of the pandemic and the effects of the pandemic. There is nowhere for those small business owners to go. There's a lot of support always to ramp up the startup, to grow, to scale. Those are sexy words. Mm-hmm. But the reality of the situation of the pandemic and as part of being a small business owner is that some of these businesses are not going to make it, and they have not made it. So where are these business owners supposed to go? Who are they supposed to ask? Where are they supposed to knock on doors that are actually going to guide them so that they can have a closing of their business with dignity and with support? And I think that that's been one of the things that I've been disappointed. Everybody's talking about rebuilding Ottawa and finding support for small business owners, but the reality of the situation is that a big portion of them have unfortunately had to close. So. Right. Where should they go? Where should they knock on? Which door should they knock on? Yeah. That's been one of the disappointments that I've seen.
Well, and as you sit there and hear this, Rachel, as businesses close, then people lose jobs, and people have to start reaching out to things like the Ottawa Food Bank and the type of programs that you provide. Give us an idea of the numbers that we've seen over the last 2 years. I know they've increased dramatically.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the worst that we have ever seen it in our 40-year history. So we have never seen numbers like this before, and they continue to rise every single month, about 10% month over month. So we're not seeing an end in sight. We know that COVID is moving on, but we're still seeing the impacts. We're seeing the cost of inflation, the cost of living here in Ottawa is driving thousands and thousands of people every month to the Ottawa Food Bank network.
So in those costs, obviously, you see those costs as well, right? It's not just us. When we go to the grocery store, you have all these great partnerships, I know, but regardless of how great the partnerships are, you are suffering from the food inflation that we're seeing across the board.
Unfortunately, we do get hit from both sides. Our budget before the pandemic was about $2 million that we spent on food every year. This year it's going to be $6 million. So that's not only the number of people that are going that is increasing, but it's also the cost of food. And as the cost of food continues to rise, it drives more people to food banks in Ottawa. So it really is, it's a compounding issue that doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon.
Carla, when you were speaking, I sensed the frustration with the bureaucracy, right, that's involved. And so you talked about, the fact that businesses have closed, and then where do they go? The city's not providing. But even when the businesses are there are other processes that are completely frustrating. Let's talk about some of those and what you'd like, some changes you'd like to see.
Absolutely. I always get frustrated at this, at how, as citizens, we are able to pay our property tax bill online, right? We're able to go online and pay it, and there's absolutely no problem doing that. However, as a business owner, when it comes time to renew our permits and our licenses, we're not able to do it online. We actually have to either go in person or we have to mail a check. So we can't do these processes online, which to me it's mind-boggling and baffling that at this day of age, we can't do this. Yeah. So, and that's just one of the minor red tapes and blockages. We're working we're trying to save our businesses. We're trying to do our job, and we're trying to always try to find ways to do business in a more, in a more succinct way, and having to take time out of our business to go to a city office to pay our permit so that we can continue to operate and be open it's just so frustrating.
The online system. Your businesses aren't the only one, right? We've heard it from. You understand too, right?
Laughing, yeah.
You're not only the CEO of the Ottawa Food Bank, you're a resident here. So actually, that's interesting, Rachel. Like from a resident's perspective, you look at this campaign so far. How do you feel? What do you feel has been great, or what do you feel has been missing?
It's interesting. In my neighborhood, I haven't had anyone come to my door, so I haven't had any candidates show up. Lots of lawn signs, and it's an active campaign, but no one has come to my community. As the CEO of the Ottawa Food Bank, we reached out to many candidates to invite them to come and learn more about what's happening in the city. We had a great engagement from some, but surprisingly, no interest whatsoever from others. So it's been a very interesting campaign to see who truly is understanding that this election and this city is about everyone and is for everyone, and not just about those that are maybe better off and doing well. Yeah.
Well, you two stick around. I'm going to go back to Kimothy here, but we'll come back to you in just a few minutes. Let's go back over to you, Kimothy. What's the news?
Put me on the spot or what? We are literally, Derick, starting to see some results coming in. We are working to get them up on the technology board momentarily, so you may start to see them coming to a screen near you. So we're going to potentially pop them up shortly. In the meantime, we're going to talk about, isn't technology a fantastic thing?
Like this.
I know. Ta-da! So again, very, very early stages. This is what it's going to look like through the rest of the night. We have pledged to you that we're going to stay here until there is a clear mayor. And what we're going to do is show these results on our wizardry board through the night, and we're going to just cycle through them. And our panel, we have two panels. We have our expert group here that had been through many elections, and we're going to have our community group. So just sort of explain for us, the three of you, you've been through many elections. For people who are just joining us, how it's going to sort of work with the fact that as results come in, and we're going to see it along the bottom, sort of just Chris, you've been through many of these, how it's going to work.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll be seeing over the course of this evening results coming in from across the city.
Yep.
We don't know right now where these votes that you're seeing at the bottom of the screen are coming in from specifically.
Right.
So it's tough to read into anything really large here, except that Mark Sutcliffe seems to be out to a very strong early lead, much stronger than the polls might have suggested.
But again, that could be one box.
But it could be one box. That's it. But you know, if you were looking at the polls going into today, they were predicting a very, very close race somewhere in the actually with Catherine McKinney leading in some cases, and it looks like right now. Mark Sutcliffe is leading by about 1,600 votes, which is not insignificant at this early stage.
Right. So, but Mark Taylor, when you sat at home and this was you, once upon a time, how were you feeling when you were watching this, and it was you, and you know, I mean, I think 3 of us at one point worked for another station at that point, and we were the people.
You were the people
this.
putting me through pain.
Yeah, we were the people putting you through pain. How were you feeling at this point?
Yeah, you know, it's a combination. It's a combination of anxiety and exhilaration, and you know, you're really like riding a roller coaster here.
Okay.
Because to Chris's point, what you're seeing on the screen, you're seeing up at the top. You know, the ADV is your advance polls. SPC is the special advance vote day, and ORD is the ordinary polls, the people who voted
look
today.
At Ralston King. Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, partially what you're going to see early on here is a reflection of how good those candidates were at getting out their vote to those advanced days. That's when you really wanted to get your vote out.
Right.
But to Chris's point, what we can't see is we can't see where the polls, the ordinary polls, are located. And so if you're strong in one area, but you don't know if that area has been captured yet,
absolutely.
You're blind.
And based on that, you're seeing right now the ordinary votes aren't even coming in yet. So it seems to be all the advanced polls and the 2 special polls that are coming in. And I mean, now we've seen another jump in Sutcliffe's numbers. So it'll be a very interesting night.
Well, and let's keep in mind too, the advance polls were also in large part before there was testimony about the truckers, and in some cases, I felt, and this is just personal opinion, some of that testimony worked for Catherine because it reminded people, I think, that Catherine was a pretty heroic figure because they were on the front line, and I feel they did a very good job defending the downtown area, and that happened while the advance polls were underway.
Not just that, but the advance polls also took place before several of the debates took place.
Correct.
Right? There have been debates since people cast their ballots.
Right. So that ballot casting was at a particularly beneficial time.
Yeah, I think you're going to see most of the advance polls are those who already made their decision. Yeah. They knew going into this, I'm Team Sutcliffe or I'm Team McKinney, and though it was easy, so I might as well vote now. Right?
What happens to Bob Shirelli in this scenario then of advance?
So all teams tell their people to go out and vote in advance so that they can be free for election day.
Correct.
And working on the ground to get people out, right?
That makes sense.
So we know that there were 85,000 people that voted in one of 3 advance ways, either the advance polling days, special ballots, or mail-in. Right? And so what you're seeing right now, it seems, are one of these 3 ways that people have chosen to vote. You're right, they had their mind made up, they'd heard enough, and they said, I'm comfortable enough to go fill in that little circle and put it next to a candidate name. And we'll see how these numbers change as today's numbers roll in, as today's votes roll in. That's going to be, I think, really interesting. And if we can start to see where they're coming in from in terms of urban versus suburban versus exurban versus rural, that's going to be a really, really interesting thing to dissect.
I think that's where you're going to see the divide.
Divide or a coalition.
You're going to see some. I think that's where you're going to see some surprising results. Right. This assertion that Catherine McKinney wasn't going to appeal to anybody outside the core. And they made the point throughout the campaign that they had lived in other parts of Ottawa and they were very well versed with the entirety of Ottawa. Let's see how that translates here. I know that Mayor Watson, when I was on council, was sometimes in heated moments, not beyond pointing out that he would have won your ward by more than you won your ward, right? So it's important for the mayor to know where their support is.
And that's going to be a really interesting factor in this race particularly, in that there are going to be, Jim ran the table most elections, right? So he won every ward in some elections. This time, that's probably less likely. There will be some wards where one candidate wins, another one wins elsewhere. And so how does that change the strong mayor calculus post-election, right? That the provincial government has essentially said, cities, here's a gift to your mayors, that they have all sorts of new powers. Both leading candidates have said we don't want to use those powers,
but they're still available. They're still there.
If the dynamic around the table is such that they may want to use those powers, that'll be a very interesting shift.
I'm going to throw it back to Derick, but I just wanted to flag for everybody that I was listening intently to everything that you all were saying, but I just was Councillor Leaper, Kavanagh, King, Luloff, Dudas, and Tierney, all sitting councillors in this advanced poll, are way ahead of their nearest competitor.
Sean Menard, another one.
And Sean Menard. So just flagging that for everybody. And those are all sitting councillors, and their numbers are way ahead. So I'm not calling anything.
No.
I do not have that ability. They do not let me do the CNN poll with, the big thing.
Magic
but
wall.
I'm just flagging that for everybody.
What's interesting
there's Councillor Kitts. So just flagging for everybody that in this advanced polling, those are all sitting councillors. There are very few of them, and so Derick, just something to watch.
Sorry,
Allison, seriously.
I'm sorry. I just wanted
Derick,
to say that
could you do something about this? See, Steve.
Allison's dying to get in there. We'll come back to her after.
Previous councillor, Steve, so we're putting him in this pack too, but I'm just watching this pattern here tonight.
Well, and as you said, though, advanced polls, right? This is,
Advance.
So it's 12% of the population. So before we get too excited, so if you're sitting at home and the anxiety is filling you right now, just remain calm.
Simmer down.
That's right. There's still lots of numbers to come in. I am joined by Carla Briones and Rachel Wilson in our community panel here. And this is something important that we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure we got different perspectives. And Rachel, when we look at the food bank, I don't think a lot of people understand that it's not just about food. There's a lot of programs involved. Your reach is far-reaching here in the community. Let's talk a little bit about that and the programs themselves that the Ottawa Food Bank offers.
Yeah, it's really important to note that we work with 112 agencies right across the city. They are in every community. So we are just the central location that brings in food, but those agencies are on the ground helping people every single day. They truly are an essential service. We know that food is what brings people to the door, and now we're really working to see what other connects and resources and supports can we give to people when they come to our doors.
Right.
So we're really trying to build up the supportive system so that people are going, who are really improving their food security.
Well, what's the relationship with the City of Ottawa and City Council and the Mayor with the Ottawa Food Bank?
Right now, we receive less than 2% of our overall funding from the City of Ottawa. We don't receive any provincial or federal funding. They do support a lot of the agencies that we work with. It's been challenging to try and get in front of City Council to really talk to them about the issues that we're seeing. We release a hunger count every year, and we haven't really been able to get much traction to talk about what an issue this truly is. Food security and food insecurity is often an early indicator of things that are going to happen in the community. So as we see the numbers rise right now, we know that this is going to have long-term effects for the City of Ottawa.
I'll get to you in just a second. I just want to follow up because I wonder, are you encouraged then that we're going to see at least 11 new faces around the council table, 12 if you include the mayor?
It's a lot of work, but absolutely encouraged to see new faces, people who are interested and understanding some of the real challenges that the city is facing when we come to affordable housing and living in the city. And we're really excited by the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, which is mandated by the province, and getting the city really engaged in that work. That will be a game changer for our sector.
Carla, same question for you from a small business perspective. Encouraged that we are going to see a lot of new faces around the table?
I am. I'm definitely encouraged. I'm encouraged to see if the diversity at City Council will represent the blanket of our city. So so I'm encouraged to see that, and change is good. Change. I mean, things. Ottawa is already doing a lot of really great things, but it's never a bad thing to bring in change and to bring in some new energy, and I'm encouraged to see that new energy come into council.
What about how we attract businesses to come to Ottawa, to stay in Ottawa, entrepreneurs to open a business in Ottawa? What can we do better?
So definitely Ottawa has a challenge when it comes to infrastructure for businesses, particularly for businesses in the warehousing industry, just businesses that need actual bricks and mortar warehousing space. Unfortunately, Ottawa is surrounded by, protected NCC land, which really limits the amount of warehousing space available in the city, which would also limit the amount of, or the types of businesses that would come into our city. Those businesses in manufacturing that would be able to produce here and export, they need those, that prime warehousing space. So that is a challenge in the city, unfortunately, obviously because of the NCC land, and that's also an environmental issue, right? So it's like we need to attract all of these world-level companies to be in the city, but we also have to find a way to work collaboratively so that these companies are able to set up shop and be able to warehouse, import, export, so on and so forth, and actually grow, employ people. But Ottawa does need the space.
We've talked a lot about affordable housing, not a lot of talk with affordable, rental. No, I mean, I grew up in this community in particular, right? We're in Westboro right now. How many businesses have I seen leave Westboro? And then we've seen the jump from Westboro to West Wellington Village to Hintonburg. And, it's not exclusive to this area. I'm just saying it because this is where I grew up in. You can speak on that perspective, right? I mean, honestly, is it even affordable to rent a brick and mortar business anymore?
Not anymore. Ottawa is such an expensive city to rent for residential, but also to rent for commercial. And the problem with commercial renting is that there is almost a monopoly. There's a few developers that own big chunks of up-and-coming neighborhoods, so they get to dictate the rental fees for business owners, and I think that is the problem. The problem is like these massive developers with massive commercial real estate in their portfolio that they really close and cap, the rent for affordable rent for business owners. But absolutely, 100%, it is definitely an issue. People who want to open bricks and mortar businesses, their first, the first wall they have to climb is finding a suitable location with affordable rent, which is it's getting harder and harder to do.
Rachel, just before I run out of time, very quickly, number one priority for you at the Ottawa Food Bank as we get a new council in, and you approach them, what's your number one priority?
Working with the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, identifying the poverty reduction and food security plan that are outlined in those, that will be our key piece.
Rachel, Carla, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kimothy, back over to you. I see the results are still coming in here.
Actually, we have some very defining results. So we're going to run through them for you. Very clear results coming in the mayor's race. We're going to go to full screen so that you can see them. Or maybe not. Mark Sutcliffe has taken a very, very clear lead in this race at 28,527. very clearly ahead of Catherine McKinney at this hour. So Bob Shirelli is clearly not even in the running anymore, and this has to be a very, very disappointing number for Catherine. We're going to now run through what we know in all of the wards. The sitting councillor, Matt Luloff in the east, is clearly ahead of both people at this hour in Orleans. Running through. Sitting councillor, Laura Dudas, also clearly ahead. David Hill, there is no sitting councillor in Barrhaven West. David Hill ahead. This is not a clear victory at this time. Kathy Curry ahead in Canada North. This one is not clear in West Carleton March. This one is still definitely in play.
And that's Eli Shantiri's.
Eli El Shantiri is not running again and well known for Police Services Board. Glengower, 3004. Teresa Kavanagh, clearly in the lead, sitting councillor. Very popular in Bay Ward. Pat McGarry is behind, but not by far, with Lane Johnson. This one very much in play, and we expected this in College Ward, and we expected this one to be a race, and our panelists already called that this one would be Knoxdale Maryvale, and then this was going to be a race, and Sean Devine, Miles Eglai, we thought because his brother was a councillor that this one would be a lot closer than it is right now. Bit of a surprise there. Gloucester Southgate, Jessica Bradley, I believe that was the Diane Dean's executive assistant, and is clearly ahead. And Diane Dean's, of course, was Police Services Board and decided not to run for mayor. Beacon Hill, Sayreville, Tim Tierney, sitting councillor, clearly well ahead. I don't think that this is going to be a race. If you want to look at the numbers at the bottom for mayor, Sutcliffe is now at 35,752. Laura Shantz, Rito Vanier. Yes, I'm aware. Thank you very much, my friend. I'm getting messages. Laura Shantz, Rito Vanier, and Stephanie Plant. These are the two people that Derick Fage thought were going to be close, neck and neck, in Rito Vanier, and indeed they are. No clear winner, but these numbers are very low. We don't have a lot going on in the numbers coming in Rito Vanier at this time. Ralston King, very popular, I believe, in Rito Rockcliffe, and the numbers indicate that. Ralston King made a lot of news when he stepped down from Police Services Board, and everybody wanted him to return to Police Services Board. And I think these numbers clearly indicate, although it is early going, that he is a councillor in that area that is incredibly popular. Somerset, these numbers are a little closer. I think Stuart McKay was going to be very popular, but Ariel Troster did very well in the debates, and I believe was going to be a very formidable presence to replace Catherine McKinney, and very well known for her presence in that community, and these numbers seem to indicate a very early lead, but again, early. Jeff Leeper, Kitchissippi, again, early, 446, but we're getting, I think, a strong presence from the contender. Daniel Stringer was making a lot of noise early on about this contest, but those 31 people are a bit of a surprise to me in Kitchissippi. River, Riley Brockington. I think it's runaway here with Riley. Sean Menard. Sean Menard was definitely a presence on council, definitely not a fan of Mayor Watson, and these numbers indicate that in Capital Ward there is probably going to be a councillor there that has a lot of experience and a sitting councillor. Alta Vista, I don't think that we could call this one for sure. This seems to be a contest. Orleans South Navan, Catherine Kitts is a sitting councillor, and it seems to me that this is another sitting councillor who has some pretty strong numbers. Interesting. George DeRuse and former councillor Doug Thompson. This is going to be an interesting evening between these two because this seems to show that this community is torn with which one of these gentlemen they're going to support. So far, sitting councillor DeRuse has the lead. Rito Jock. Allison, is this your neighborhood?
This is my riding, yes.
Okay. Well, looks like David Brown has the lead so far. No sitting councillor in this one. Former councillor Steve DeRoche. Were you there at the same time, Mark?
I was. There was one term of overlap, yeah.
Okay, so Steve DeRoche is in the lead, but again, we don't have a lot of numbers here. And Alan Hubley.
This is interesting.
Yeah, Alan Hubley, this is not runaway.
This is seesawed back and forth so far this evening. Yeah.
Yep, Alan Hubley with only 832, but still only 3 out of 18 in the advance.
Yeah, see now they've just jumped.
Oh, they just jumped.
So
it's always interesting in these races too to see if you add up the non-incumbent vote. You know, that's usually an indicator of how people are generally feeling in the ward.
Look at these numbers.
Oh my goodness, we've had a very large.
What's interesting, this
jump
is
here.
just the advanced and special votes.
We have not seen a single today vote yet. These are all advance votes.
Yeah.
So again, keeping in mind that the advance, what we talked about, 75,000 to 54.
Yeah.
And we can tell you that other media organizations have called this race.
Right.
Again,
I don't think any of us thought that this was going to happen so quickly.
Well, particularly because we don't have today's votes in, and we are a city of 1 million people.
Right.
So that is the mayor's vote at this hour, everyone, 75,548. And we're going to continue in our live unfolding of this. And
if I can make one observation.
Sorry, those numbers just went back. Do we know why the numbers just went back to 61 and not 75?
Well, they're kind of probably recalculated based on what's coming in.
Yeah, we're getting those numbers through city numbers that are given to us. But
I mean, if I can make one observation, that if these numbers hold for Mark Sutcliffe, there's a lot of races where the Horizon Ottawa or a very sort of distinctive left-leaning candidate is winning, and so I think he will be challenged to do that bridge building that he has said that he's very good at, and he said that he'll be tested on this because his agenda will be pulled leftward by other people around that table.
Right. What we do encourage you to do too is watch that number on the right-hand side. So your right box there, the red box, because that's going to be your today numbers. So you're going to see when they release those numbers, a dramatic change in.
Glenn Gower now 3,000 votes ahead of his.
And that's the observation I'm seeing. That's what I wanted. Sorry that I abruptly tried to interrupt you before we went to Derick. But what I was trying to say.
We get all excited.
I know. What I was trying to say before we went to Derick was that what we're seeing here, as you were pointing out, all the incumbents have significant leads. The races that don't have an incumbent, we're seeing people going, not quite sure who I'm going to choose.
Yeah. Right.
So they
So
got
it goes
the tighter
back and
numbers,
forth.
and they're
Yeah.
going back and forth.
Right.
And again, the two, I mean, the one in my riding, Rideau Jock, you're seeing a little bit of a lead there. But again, that's a candidate who has City Hall experience. So they're going with someone that they feel is a little bit comfortable. You're looking at Diane Dean's ward and Jennifer Bradley. She has the experience.
That
right?
is, for all intent and purposes, a continuity vote,
Yes.
although I did note that gap is closing very quickly with
Yes.
the second place.
Yeah.
I think when you look at organizations,
Look at the race in Rideau Vanier.
wow.
They're almost tied now.
So this is my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I expect this one to go back and forth throughout the evening.
Right.
Certainly there's been a lawn sign war in the hood. The private property lawn sign war between Laura and
You do kind of live in Lower
Stephanie,
Town.
Stephanie Plow. I call it the hood.
The hood.
But
It's a lovely area.
it's been strong in both camps, and they've been out working hard. They've been hustling, the two of them, and so I expect this to be a very, very tight race throughout the evening.
Okay, we're actually going to go to one of these incumbents, Matt Luloff, right now, and I want to be one of these exciting people that calls something at some point this evening, but I'm not prepared to call. Can I call Matt Luloff? Well, I can call him on the phone, but I don't know if I can call the race at this point. But we're going to go to him anyway. So, Matt Luloff.
So we are talking to Matt Luloff. Matt Luloff is currently the leading candidate in Ward 1, which is Orleans East Cumberland. Mr. Luloff, how do you feel? I heard people cheering earlier, so that must be a good sign for you.
It has been. It's been a long and difficult campaign, but we really ensured that we spread our positive message. People here in Orleans are very excited to continue the great work that we've done over the course of the last 4 years, bringing employment and encouraging, different kind of built form and development so that Orleans can be a place for everyone. Very, very excited about the results so far tonight.
Sorry, just because of audio problems, I couldn't hear what he said and whether or not he was grateful that I called it or not. So.
He really appreciated it.
Ecstatic. Yes.
Yeah. Was he ecstatic?
He was happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was or not. Maybe I'll text him later and just, dear Matt.
Thank you.
I think when we look at these, though, Kimothy, it's interesting because the citywide vote, we talked earlier about how some of the other media organizations have called it. They're simply doing the math on the if you're getting this much of a percentage of the advance vote and that holds, then you're going to get X. You really can't do that in the ward races with no incumbents because you have the absence of those big issues, right? There was no testimony on Parliament Hill. There was no mayoral debate on that level for those ward councillors. So you're going to see those whipsaw back and forth. So if you're out there crossing your fingers for one particular candidate or another, you're going to continue now for the next hour going back and forth.
And yet, in most of the ridings where incumbents were presenting again or running again, there was a Horizon Ottawa candidate that was there, being backed, being very, very heavily supported, and we're seeing a very mixed bag in terms of the results that has had, and whether or not there's been a real impact of that that's been positive.
Well, and taking it from the point of view of where I have worked previously, we saw a lot of influence from the federal, which we haven't, we were talking about this a little bit off camera, is that we were seeing, usually it was stay out of the municipal, we're not going to say much. And this time we saw a lot of federal political voices backing certain candidates. We saw, Catherine McKenna, our former environment minister, Mark Carney with McKinney. And then you look at the others who have significant roles within our federal government and provincial governments that we're saying we're backing these specific candidates. So that's not something we've seen over the last 12 years. So this was a new aspect to consider.
Yeah, in one way, shape, or form, the influence of, quote unquote, party politics is really now making itself present and felt at the municipal level.
Is that a bad thing?
Well, I mean, we've decided...
We're in a federal town.
We've decided, though, in Ontario, that we don't want to have political parties at the municipal level. It seems now, at least here in this election, that that's changing. It'll be interesting to see how things shake out for people like Patrick Brown, for Andrea Horwath, and other municipalities in Ontario, and to what extent, their previous party network influenced getting out that vote.
Right.
I'm seeing that little red check mark next to Mark Sutcliffe's name now. That means something, I'm sure. But the thing that's really interesting to me is where that goes, right?
Yeah.
If it stays registered third parties, Horizon Ottawa, et cetera, and they have success,
right.
Look out, because there will be third parties from all over the place in the coming years, I think. Yeah. And frankly, I think that would lead to a bit of an Americanization of our municipal politics.
Well, and we talk about how one of the things we struggled with in this last term of council was this sense of polarization, right? And in one way, shape, or form, many people were looking to this election tonight to be something that restored a bit of collaboration and collegiality around the council table. Don't know if that will happen yet, still too early to tell. But you're right, absolutely, Chris. If we go that route of American-style politics, it does not bode well for collaboration and consensus building. It really drives those distinction and divisions even more.
And again, that goes to your point of Sutcliffe's campaign, where he said, I am willing to work together and bring everyone a team. And I think that's what this city needs. We've seen a lot of division over the last few years. And for this to be kind of on the outward edges that we're seeing some parties coming in, I hope it doesn't reflect that on the city council when they're debating issues.
Can I just, I'm going to interrupt you for a second because I do want to get clarification on that. I'm going to ask the powers that be that actually talk in my ear. The computer actually says that Mark Sutcliffe is the mayor of this city. Can somebody confirm that before we go to Derick? Because yes, he is. I get to call something, Derick.
Yay!
Mark Sutcliffe is the mayor of this city, and we're going to call it, and I'm not talking to myself. There is an earpiece in my ear. Mark Sutcliffe is the mayor elect of Jim Watson is actually the mayor of the city at this hour, and the computer has called this, so we now know the result of at least one race, and we have a few more. And I can tell you, it is 9 o'clock.
Curry,
and
also elected.
Mark Taylor said we would know the mayor at 9 o'clock, and we're going to start seeing the check marks on some of your councillors, and we can start calling it. But Mark Taylor said 9 o'clock, and it is 9 o'clock. So Mark Sutcliffe is the mayor-elect. Derick.
I might have to correct you there. I think Mark Taylor said 9:30, didn't you, Mark? And I said 9 o'clock?
Oh.
You might have been right.
Right, I believe that's the way it went. Listen, I'm just throwing it out there, guys. I'm pretty sure. Let's replay it later on, and we can all sit down in the green room and have a look. Again, we're back with the community panel. Thanks for that. As you just saw, we're calling Mark Sutcliffe, has been declared the next mayor of Ottawa, and you'll see those check marks come along. And it's been really fascinating watching it with my next two guests, because there's been surprised looks and perhaps some looks of relief, depending on who gets elected. I am joined by two other wonderful community members. Su-Ling Ching, she is the president and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. Su-Ling, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And Robin Brown, the co-founder and coordinator at 613-819 Black Hub. Welcome to the show, Robin. Let's talk about some of the reactions, Robin. I'm watching your reaction as we see some of these results, and you look disappointed. Tell me how you're feeling at this moment.
Well, I guess one of the things that really jumped out at me during the campaign, Derick, was we think back like 2.5 years ago, we were in the middle of Black Lives Matter. It completely is gone. Now it's almost as if the candidates were thinking, if we mention that, it's going to hurt our chances, right? Because it's completely absent, right? So now and it's clearly with the election of Mark Sutcliffe, it seems to be that seems to have worked. So we're in a situation now where we have a mayor-elect who certainly is committed to he says, giving money to the police.
How do you feel about that?
Well, again, one of the things also that I noticed was that so him, like a lot of the candidates, also mentioned stuff like they're going to take a really close look at all city programs. Like Mark Sutcliffe said, he's going to do a line-by-line review. But from what he said about the police, it doesn't seem to include the police, though.
Yeah, I've heard that. No, you're not the first one to say that, Robin. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
It doesn't seem to include and it's kind of shocking because like certainly when when people talk about the idea of needing the police and everything, they're usually talking about violent crime. That's the fear, right?
Right.
But what again a lot of the candidates didn't mention was that the Ottawa police actually have a rating system, right? So the crimes that are violent where there's imminent bodily harm are called priority 1 calls.
Right.
Okay? Their own stats show that as of last year, less than 1% of their calls are priority 1. The other 99% are them sitting at the construction sites or them directing traffic. So it's like, in what world do we not go? Okay, that's really inefficient. We need to shift some of that money. But that got all lost, right? So it's good to see other some progressive candidates getting in, because one of your panelists was saying, and I agree that's going to be a good and a necessary pull on the mayor to the other side, so to speak. Huh?
Yeah. From a small business perspective, Suling, you see this council starting to come together a little bit here. What are your thoughts so far?
Well, I mean, all of the candidates have named their support for small business. All of them, even in the last council, wanted to work together for small business. So we're committed as the Board of Trade to work with whomever,
with
anyone
yeah.
who is elected, and I think we see a little more diversity now in this council coming forward. So it's an opportunity.
I have to cut you off there because we're going to go straight to Catherine McKinney here, I believe. Kimothy, is that right?
And keep working to create the
here we go.
city
Yeah.
that we
Yeah, we're going
deserve.
to Catherine. We're going to Catherine.
Because the work of building a better Ottawa is never finished. And one night and one loss is not going to keep us down for long. It isn't. I want to congratulate our new mayor, Mark Sutcliffe. Mark, no, I know you entered this race because, like me, you believe in this city and its potential. You want to make this city, bettering this city, your full-time job, and I have a lot of respect for that. And I sincerely wish you every success. So friends, this is my third time running for public office, and I've got to say, despite these results, I've absolutely enjoyed and cherished every minute of this campaign. I enjoyed every minute of this campaign because of you. Yes, at times the abuse on social media sucks. The polarization of politics makes everything so unpleasant, but you made it a joy. Your dedication, your support, your encouragement. It meant the world to me, and I will cherish the trust that you put in me. We need good people to enter politics. Creative, compassionate, ambitious people who want to build a better future for those in their community. And I hope that my candidacy, this campaign, and the fact that we came close to victory will inspire new generations of people to come forward to serve their community. And Catherine was up here with me. my beautiful wife and my partner in every sense of the word. I can tell you, and I said it the other day, the best day of my life was the day that I married you, although we'd only known each other for a few months, but that crapshoot worked, man. Best wife in the world. Best wife. And I couldn't do any of this without you. You're not just behind me in everything I do, but you're beside me. Thank you. I just don't have the words enough to say, but I love you. I do. And my kid here, Kenny, didn't sign up for any of this. But you've been all in from day one, supporting me, believing in me, giving me the love and the confidence. This kid gives me the confidence that I needed for this campaign. I love you. And to my brilliant campaign manager, Samia Rayeda. Samia is highly intelligent. Samia is tough. Samia, everybody loves Samia. And Samia says no when she needs to say no and yes when she needs to say yes. Samia ran this campaign with vision, with integrity, and a tenacity that inspired me every single day. Thank you. So to my entire team, from the most brilliant campaign co-chairs that you've met, Vicky Smallman, Tyler Meredith, to every single staff member and our hundreds of volunteers, thank you. You ran a campaign with the principles that we cherish: inclusivity, transparency, and ambition. You are a hardworking and brilliant community, and I am so proud of you, and I will miss seeing you every single day. I want to thank every community leader who supported me, from Joel Hardin to Catherine McKenna, from Chandra Pasma to Mark Carney, and to everyone in every ward, all of you who supported our vision. When you lend your name to someone, I know you don't do that lightly. You didn't have to weigh in on this race, but you did because you believe in the same goal, the same values, and I'm humbled by your support. I want to tell you something. A loss does not mean that all is lost. We've made a big difference. Elections matter and campaigns matter. Thousands of voters endorsed a vision of Ottawa to become a world-class city. No one can ignore that. Thousands of voters want Ottawa to be the greenest, the healthiest, and the best connected city in Canada. A fun and
I've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with Catherine, and I know that when she said one night and one loss isn't going to keep us down for long, and I am most certain that they meant it. And you're noticing a big trend in the results that you're seeing.
Absolutely.
What are you seeing?
So it'll be very interesting to see what Catherine does next, firstly. But secondly, one thing I was wondering about coming into tonight is whether there would be an incumbent advantage, as there normally is, just given the state of the city and how things are going. And it seems like name recognition is still enough to at least propel in early votes, because there is still not a sitting candidate or an incumbent councillor who's lost yet, or has even a
We're seeing a lot of check marks now.
I think it's incumbent councillor for sure. Name recognition is a component. Also, their actual work in their wards. I think it'll be interesting to see. Some people probably voted for their existing councillor, partially wondering what if their councillor is going to have a little more operating room with a different mayor in the mayor's office. So that'll be interesting to see. Whether it had been Catherine or Mark Sutcliffe, people might be thinking, look, if I send my councillor back to City Hall, they might be able to do different things now with a different, with a different mayoralty down there.
Absolutely.
I do want to recognize Catherine's commitment to the community, though. Absolutely very deep.
And we're still waiting to see about the George Giroux's and Doug Thompson race, though, because speaking of name recognition, those one former councillor and one present councillor are still duking it out down there. And we, of course, are waiting to hear from Mark Sutcliffe, although I did receive a lovely message from him on my phone, but we're going to go to Derick.
Thank you so much, Kimothy. And I'm going to start with Sue Ling right away because we got cut off, and for good reason. We heard from Catherine McKinney, a beautiful emotional speech, Sue Ling, but you see that, Mark Sutcliffe is the new mayor. What do you want to hear from Mark Sutcliffe when it comes to, you've been speaking to businesses for many, many years. What do you want to hear from the new mayor when it comes to aiding small businesses in this community?
Well, Mark's been very clear that he understands the importance of it. He is a businessman himself. He has spent the last part of his career mentoring small businesses, so has a deep understanding of what is required. And he's going to look for ways to make City Hall more accessible to small businesses, to have us serve them better in this city. And I think Mark really understands that we need to take a whole of community approach when it comes to supporting small business. And same with, Catherine's remarks there were very emotional. And I know that Catherine has run a fabulous campaign, and when you look at someone like that who has committed so much to the city, that will manifest itself in other ways. And it's going to be the same for all of council. Everyone who has run has done it for a passion for this city, and same with the Board of Trade and all of our members. We all work together with these governments and other community partners and economic partners in order to make the potential of this city realized. And so that's what we're looking for from Mark, and which when he moves forward is to keep that commitment of radical collaboration and working together and looking for innovative ways of supporting our businesses.
Robin, when you look at the results coming in here, lack of diversity. Listen, there's female candidates. We're seeing a lot of women, which is great. We want, of course, representation from gender. But are you disappointed in the diversity around the table?
Well, it is telling. I mean, the council is going to look very much like our panel over there, right? So because I believe with Eli El-Shantari gone, we have only Ralston King and George Giroux's now, right? Or people of color at all, right? Yeah. So that's a problem, because the whole issue of diversity isn't just about altruism, right? Like there's I'll give you an example of that in Ontario. So the Ontario government now is actually implementing a position specifically focused on anti-black racism. Okay, and when I heard that, I was like, Doug Ford's doing that? Why then? And then it was explained to me why he's doing it, because he understands where the demographics are going, right? And then if you don't address these issues, it's not just a matter, again, of altruism. You're going to have social unrest on a level that we haven't seen before, right? So the council, in terms of obviously cultural diversity, we have almost none, right? And that's a problem. It is nice to have seen that in terms of the politics. It seems like I think we're seeing some more of the progressive. We talked about this earlier. So that are being elected, so they'll pull in that direction. But clearly we didn't have much of a breakthrough in terms of the color of the council. Yep.
Right. Appreciate that, Rob. That perspective. I'm going to go back to Kimothy. Kimothy, take it away.
Yeah, I think actually what we're going to do now is I believe Mayor-elect Sutcliffe is walking to the stage. So we're going to engage the panel here. I think all of us have done this. 3 of us have participated in covering it. 1 of us has walked through an exciting scene like this as a councillor-elect. This has to be a really exciting moment for Mark Sutcliffe right now. I mean, worked so hard, and I've never hidden the fact that Mark and I did the radio show together, and this has to be really exciting. Mark Taylor for Mark Sutcliffe right now. I don't have to guess how he's feeling.
No, absolutely. I'm sure he's feeling equal parts just elated.
Oh, there's Yasser Naqvi.
And exhausted.
It's like a who's who.
I'm sure he's feeling elated and exhausted. And, for the winner, the reality is he's just raced his longest race, and now he's arrived at the starting line.
Yeah.
Right, and there's so much work to do. Allison, what does he have to do now?
Well, now it's trying to figure out, okay, my team, who's going to be with me at City Hall, and what is going to be my first priorities. Especially, we're all going to be watching those first 100 days of his mayoralship, and it'll be interesting to see what the team that he puts around him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris, what does he have to do now?
Well, so part of that staging will be to see who else is around the council table with him, to see what priorities he can put in the window first. He will have to pick a transition team relatively quickly and get briefed up. I mean, he's very well versed on most city issues anyways, but he will need the inside briefing. He'll then need to make some decisions on things that may sound boring, like committee structures and governance and that kind of thing.
But very important.
But it's critical.
Very important.
Critical.
It sets the stage for what you can accomplish.
Totally.
And speaking of stage, I mean, I know that you all at home understand that we are going to, as soon as he takes to the microphone, take the audio from that. So I'm going to cut off right now. There.
Wow. 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 Bonsoir. Hello, everyone. Sorry for the loud mic. Are we good? What a beautiful night in Ottawa. I am feeling a lot of emotions right now. Humility, excitement, joy, a lot of relief. But most of all, I am feeling incredible gratitude. I'm so thankful for the experience that Ginny and our family and I have had throughout this campaign, and I'm especially grateful for the tens of thousands of people who support our vision for the future of Ottawa. Oh, okay. J'ai beaucoup d'émotions en ce moment, mais surtout, je me sens reconnaissant envers les dizaines de milliers de personnes qui appuient notre vision de l'avenir d'Ottawa. As I said on the day that I announced I was running, I love Ottawa. And that's never been more true than today, but not because of the outcome of the election, but because of the tens of thousands of people that I've met during the campaign who have reminded me what a wonderful, kind, caring, diverse community that we live in. Over the course of this campaign, we built a coalition of people from throughout the city and across the political spectrum. I want to thank the hundreds of volunteers who put extraordinary time and effort into this campaign. Although there is, yeah, absolutely. Although there's only one name on the ballot, this was completely a team effort. And I was only one member of that team. So thank you all so much, each and every one of you. I love you all. I want to thank my amazing campaign manager, Sabrina Grover, who worked tirelessly, and the leadership campaign for this, the leadership team for this campaign. If you ever decide to run for office, my best advice for you is get the best team in Ottawa to help you, and that's what I did. Tout au long de la campagne, nous avons construit une coalition de résidents de tous les coins de la ville et de l'ensemble du spectre politique. Je veux particulièrement remercier les centaines de bénévoles qui ont consacré leur temps et leurs efforts envers cette campagne. Même s'il n'y avait qu'un seul nom sur le ballot, c'était un travail d'équipe et je n'étais qu'un membre de cette équipe. Alors merci beaucoup à vous tous, vous êtes incroyables. À mes 24 coprésidents honoraires de la campagne, dont plusieurs sont présents ce soir, merci pour votre soutien et de vos conseils. Merci de votre confiance. I also want to thank the 24 honorary campaign co-chairs, many of whom who are here tonight. Thank you for your support and guidance. You've been amazing. I've learned a lot during this campaign. For one thing, it is more difficult to participate in a debate than to moderate one. Definitely learned that. Yep. Not to mention 7 debates in 10 days. Also, thank you. Also, not everyone wears pants when they answer the door. Happened 3 or 4 times. Right, Jenny? I did make one big mistake during this campaign, one big mistake, and that was letting my wife, Ginny, speak before me at our official launch in September. That was a tough act to follow. So I am never doing that again. But Ginny has been an amazing partner and a really effective campaigner during the past few months, and my family has been wonderful and supportive. Every night before I went to bed, Jack would say to me, "Whether you win or lose, I will always love you." Thank you, Jack. Jack, we won. We won, buddy. Ginny, these are for you. Thank you, my love. No matter what happened during this campaign, no matter what even would happen tonight, I was so lucky to be able to go home to my family at the end of every day. So I feel very grateful for that. I want to take a minute to say a few words about Catherine McKinney. I have always admired and respected Catherine, and every day during this campaign, I gained even more respect for them. Catherine is a trailblazer. Catherine is an incredibly passionate advocate for the most vulnerable. And Catherine has an unequaled ambition for what our city can be. I want to personally congratulate Catherine and their team on an excellent campaign that made us all think about what Ottawa can be. Congratulations, Catherine. Je veux personnellement féliciter Catherine McKinney pour sa campagne. Catherine a mené une campagne qui nous a tous fait réfléchir à ce qu'Ottawa peut devenir. To the people who voted for Catherine and any of the other candidates, I want you to know that I have listened to your concerns and expectations throughout this campaign. I believe there is common ground for us, and I promise to continue to listen. I promise I will be a mayor for all of Ottawa. To all the people who put their names forward in this campaign for school board, for council, for mayor, thank you for making the sacrifice to contribute to your democracy. And to the 24 people who have been elected to serve on the next city council, I want to say heartfelt congratulations. I'm ready to work with all of you to make Ottawa better for everyone. This election was never about me or any other candidate. It was always about you, the people of Ottawa, and the kind of city that we can build together. Tonight, the people of Ottawa made a clear decision. You voted for positive change. You voted for compassion and fiscal responsibility. You voted for a safer, more reliable, more affordable city. You voted for an approach that works for all of Ottawa. As I've said every day during this campaign, I will respect every part of the city, the rural areas, the suburbs, and the urban areas. I will listen to you, I will respect you, I will work hard for you, for all of you. Tonight we're going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate tonight. But tomorrow the hard work begins. We're facing many challenges, but I am filled, as I always am, with hope and optimism for our city. Because I know the people of Ottawa. I know the people of this city can do anything as long as we work together. That's how we're going to look after the most vulnerable. That's how we're going to face down inflation and rising costs and build a better economy. That's how we're going to fix our roads and fix public transit. That's how we're going to support seniors and find more family doctors. We won't do it by prolonging divisions or setting up battles. We will do it as Team Ottawa. Thank you so much. Don't make me cry. Don't make me cry. Ottawa, merci pour votre confiance. Merci pour votre soutien. Ce n'est pas quelque chose que je prends pour acquis. Aux personnes qui ont voté pour moi et à ceux qui ont voté pour les autres candidats, je vous promets que je vais travailler fort pour vous à chaque jour. Notre ville fait face à plusieurs défis, mais je sais qu'on est prêt à affronter ces défis ensemble. On fait tous partie d'équipe Ottawa. It is time for a change. It's time for a change. That's what the people of Ottawa wanted. But it is also time for unity. It is also time for a common purpose. No matter where you live, no matter where you come from, no matter who you love, no matter what challenges and struggles you face, your next city council and your next mayor will be working hard to make your life better. We have so much potential. We have so much opportunity. We have so much responsibility. From this moment, let's start working together. Let's start working together to build a better city for everyone. Thank you, everyone. Merci. Thank you.
Well, we know that there is a lot of work to be done. And Krista, you're just reading something that Mayor Watson said to Mark Sutcliffe on the very personal platform Twitter.
Not at all public.
No, not at all.
Congratulating the mayor-elect and on becoming Ottawa's 59th mayor, and looking forward to working with him and his team on a smooth transition. Congratulations to the other candidates who were successful in their elections, and thanks to all who had their courage to put their names on the ballot.
So you helped personally with the transition that involved Larry O'Brien. What happens now? Like literally what happens now down at City Hall?
So the outgoing mayor, the incoming mayor, their teams will meet. The incoming mayor needs to pick a transition team.
Okay.
And they will get briefed up by senior city staff and by the outgoing mayor's team. They then need to figure out what the committee and governance structure is going to look like. Mark there or Mayor-elect Sutcliffe now, just promising a Team Ottawa approach. We'll see how that plays out in the committee picks and the governance structure. He then needs to write a budget, right? That's job one, is writing a budget and delivering on his some of his platform promises, and then making decisions throughout the course of the year to ensure that he's able to deliver on all of the promises that he's just done and made and garnered support for. And that will include decisions on a new city manager potentially, an executive structure, and changes to the departmental orientation and posture for the city going forward so he can deliver on his promises.
We're going to continue running. We're going to continue running through some of these results, but I know we're going to go quickly to Derick and just talk about the community aspect of this. Derick.
Thank you very much, Kimothy. Well, you heard from Mark throughout the campaign, Mark Sutcliffe saying the fact that, no free transit, perhaps freeze transit, but he just repeated right there, Sutcliffe just repeated that he will fix transit. Well, that is a huge task. And joining me right now is David Jeans, is the Director of Transport Action Canada. David, welcome. Great to have you here.
Hi, Derick.
It's easy to promise that kind of thing, David, but this is a huge task ahead of it. What do you think about comments like that?
Well, there are going to be some very big challenges. I don't think any candidate could have made promises without really recognizing that the report on the light rail inquiry, which will be coming out in just over a month, is going to make a huge difference to whatever decisions are made going forward, both in terms of what actually has to be done to fix OC Transpo and fix light rail, and second, what has to be done in the whole realm of public-private partnerships and major infrastructure projects going forward. Because Mark Sutcliffe has said that, we need to invest in transportation infrastructure, and he means roads as well.
Right. What's the biggest challenge here in Ottawa with public transit? A lot of, you just mentioned, a lot have been said about the LRT. Of course, the inquiry's coming, but often forgotten is the bus system itself and how frustrated people are.
And it was a major issue in many wards all over the city, and surprisingly, a big issue in places like Barrhaven, where a mini city of 100,000 people, as many as Kingston, pretty much, has very limited local bus service. You can't get around Barrhaven by bus. You can get to the transitway if you're going downtown, and if we get stage 3 of light rail, which is going to be another big challenge for Mark. Can he get money for stage 3?
And David, sorry to cut you off. I was just going to say, some people are even questioning, bringing light rail out to Barrhaven because, everything has changed since the pandemic. More people are working from home. We've built a transit system that brings people from the suburbs to downtown. Do we need to reimagine this system completely?
Well, we certainly need to some extent, because a lot of the people who provided the bulk of OC Transpo's riders in the peak hours were civil servants living in the suburbs and working downtown. You mustn't forget, though, that transit is absolutely essential for all the people who work in the service industries, in retail, in the hospitality industry, in the limited amount of manufacturing that we have in policing.
Yeah.
There are a whole bunch of jobs that you can't do from your bedroom.
Absolutely. No, you make you make an excellent point. Transport Action Canada, for those that aren't familiar with it, you're an advocacy group.
Yep.
Just describe exactly what kind of advocacy work you
we
do.
were founded about 45 years ago in response to Liberal federal government plans to rationalize the train system across Canada.
Right.
And we still haven't really accomplished that.
No.
Via Rail is in a certain amount of chaos right now with aging equipment and so on. And we've been engaged with that. We've been engaged locally on transit projects all over Canada. We have regional organizations in Atlantic Canada and British Columbia, in different parts of Ontario, Northern Ontario, Southwestern Ontario. We have a sister organization in Quebec who are all very much involved with the regional issues, but Transport Action Canada provides a national perspective which is concerned with things right now, the dearth of intercity bus service.
Right.
Ottawa has lost a lot more than the riders on OC Transpo. When we lost Greyhound, our central bus station has just been torn down a couple of weeks ago. There's a whole lot of public transportation that has evaporated, and I think bringing back a system that will be equitable and will serve the people who absolutely depend on transit or intercity transportation, whether by intercity bus or by train, those are all things that the mayor will have to be involved with. But his big challenges are going to be how to respond to that report, how to deal with the real lack of confidence that the public have right now in OC Transpo, and particularly what needs to be done to get the riders back, because if we don't get the riders back, we can't afford it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's made that point. He's unfortunately used the word optimization to describe what he'd like to do to the buses, and that brings back memories of the route optimization that was done some years ago, which really was a massive cut citywide.
Right.
And in fact, Catherine McKinney was reminding people just how severe some of those cuts were. She would have spent money that perhaps wasn't available, but she would have spent money to try and restore some of those cuts that really affected people's lives.
And David, Catherine McKinney brought up the idea of free transit for those 17 and under.
Yeah.
Do you think that was, do you think that's a good idea and a realistic idea?
Yeah, it's certainly an idea that has to be looked at. Mark Sutcliffe has made it pretty clear that free transit is not on his agenda. But there are some benefits to it. One thing is that we need to get the young people to be our next generation of transit users. That's essential. In fact, we also are dealing with the problem of shortage of school bus operators, as well as shortage of OC Transpo drivers. And a lot of school kids who now are being forced to use OC Transpo services because their yellow buses aren't available anymore. Right. And so free transit for people under age 18 would have been a way of helping to encourage that. But on the other hand, was it an affordable way? That's a matter for debate.
David, another hat you've worn is being part of Heritage Ottawa. You're a former president of Heritage Ottawa. What responsibility does the city have to protect our heritage buildings, whether they be, residential buildings or St. Bridget's Church is a great example. We heard that a lot in the news.
Well, that'll be a huge challenge for the mayor, and there are very strong voices on the cultural front. Arts, culture, and heritage. And he has to support that community because it's very important to our economy as well as to our culture. And one of the problems we've got is that tomorrow the provincial government is going to be bringing forward law changes that will actually probably significantly reduce the heritage protection that we have right now in a way that the city won't be able to actually continue that level of protection that we've had so far. So I think we're facing some heritage challenges.
Okay.
We do have a new councillor in Somerset Ward downtown who has expressed a concern for conservation of heritage buildings. So I think there will be strong heritage voices. Ralston King, who's been re-elected with a huge majority, is a great defender of heritage. So I think there are positive aspects there, but it is something that the new mayor will have to keep in mind.
I know hindsight's easy, when we look at public transit, is in your mind and in your organization's mind, was light rail still the right way for this city to go?
Well, it was inevitable. The people forget that back in 2009, the express bus system had reached its limits. You could no longer feed enough express buses through downtown to actually accomplish what you were trying to do. And you had these huge bus queues that sometimes extended all the way from Mackenzie King right down to Herdman with buses not moving. That was very expensive. It's an inefficient way of using manpower, each driver only moving a 40-foot or a 60-foot bus. Now, we haven't achieved the manpower savings on light rail that were promised.
Right.
That doesn't mean that we won't get there. Hopefully, with all the problems that have been fixed over the last year to 2 years, we are going to see reliable operation, and we are going to start seeing some of the real economies of operating our backbone as light rail. But it's only a starter system. Right now, it's only 12 kilometers. Stage 2 will.
Yeah, people forget that.
Stage 2 will obviously. Yeah, that's only 50% longer than the original Trillium line was, the O train, and people said that was just a toy, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Something 50% longer than that is our transit backbone. So that's stage 2 is important. And for the West End, Canada won't have light rail. Barrhaven won't have light rail. And yet those are huge growth areas.
Yeah.
At least we're going to see the some significant benefits delivered in the East End, but there are gaps in the East End. You saw the story a couple of weeks ago about the $8 million park and ride in Chapel Hill South, which isn't doing anything because there's no transit.
Yeah.
You got room for all those cars.
Well, people are saying that the same thing with Canada. You go into Canada and it stops at a parking lot, and that's not necessarily serving the community as well as it should be.
So there will be a lot of voices who will have things to say about transit on council. All but one of the Transit Commission members from the last council have been re-elected. Jean Cloutier didn't run.
That's right.
And so there will be a lot of councillors for the mayor to deal with who feel they know a lot about transit and who I'm sure will give the mayor an interesting time in developing his transit
Well, and it'll
policies.
be interesting if they remain part of the Transit Commission as well. That's another interesting...
that's a power that the mayor has, right? He can fix many of the committees to reflect the policies that he'd like to see promoted. I'd like to see a balance on the Transit Commission and for that matter on Transportation Committee, which deals more with infrastructure matters.
Right.
Because the inner wards matter as well as the outer suburban wards.
Absolutely. David, really appreciate both of these perspectives. Thanks so much. Let's head back over to Kimothy and her panel. Kimothy, take it away.
Actually, we're going to hear from a few of our new councillors, and we're going to start with College Ward with Lane Johnson.
Congratulations, Councillor Lane Johnson. What does this vote of confidence from the constituents mean to you?
Well, I think it means that all of my volunteers did a really bang-up job. We've been at the door since January, and we have talked to thousands and thousands of people, and College Ward wanted to be heard. And so once I think they saw that someone was willing to go the distance in minus 30 and plus 40, I think people responded well to that work ethic. And because I bring with myself a knowledge and experience relating to municipal issues, knowing how many new councillors are around the table, I think people felt like this was the right team to pull off their issues that they've been waiting for a number of years, right? So I'm very encouraged and I'm very excited to show up for everyone every day.
Now, you mentioned some issues. You're inheriting a ward with some issues. What is going to be your first priorities when you're in office?
Well, there's some really low-hanging fruit when it comes to accountability. So in our ward, we haven't had a real relationship with our city councillor for a number of years. So easily, a newsletter popping showing up in the ward, constant communication. My background's in civic education. And so I have the belief that people can understand the trade-offs of the issues in front of them. So making sure that we consult regularly and we communicate regularly so that people aren't surprised, because that's the worst feeling when you walk out your front door and there's a development sign popping up or there's a business that's closing and you don't understand how it came about. We don't have to be like that. We can have a proper and respectful relationship with City Hall. And so those would be, you know, the really easy, well, I mean, maybe not easy because it's relationship building, but it would be a very quick win in the first 30 days.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Cara. I really appreciate your time and energy. Thank you.
So it looks like we have still 3 undecided: Rideau Vanier, West Carleton March, and Osgood, which is just absolutely so close. But a lot of these have been decided. And Mark Taylor, when you go and you show up for that first day of work and you get, and I've seen them from all my years and our years of covering City Hall before you actually started working there, Christe, that binder, is it daunting when you have so much to learn?
Well, it absolutely is.
Many binders, actually.
That's right. What I will say, though, is that, you know, you asked Chris earlier what the process was for the mayor-elect at this point. The city clerk's office actually undertakes a transition for councillors-elect as well. So, you know, we used to call it councillor school.
Yeah, you have to go to school.
You have to go to school and
learn a budget.
Yes. So, you know, you'll just come down from the high of being with your supporters and your election night party, and you'll get a telephone call from the clerk's office, and they will arrange a time for you to come in, and you'll start going to school. And it'll be everything from committee process to, you know, what the rules are that, you know, you have to now abide by as a public official, and how the city operates. So a lot of learning in a very short space of time, and then it's right into that first council meeting.
Okay. And actually, I'm just going to jump in because we actually have Wilson Lowe, right, again, who's going to go to school and is one of your new councillors.
The newest city councillor, Councillor-elect Wilson Lowe in Barrhaven East. Wilson, congratulations, 900,000 steps on these new shoes that you brought in to campaign.
Yes, I bought this new pair of shoes at the beginning of the campaign just to see how quickly I wear through them. 960,712 exactly steps, 760 something kilometers, I believe, and I have half a centimeter of sole left, and they're still intact.
This is your first campaign. What did you learn from this, and what can you take from this down the road?
People are incredibly kind. They love to talk if you give them the opportunity to, and honestly, I think that I'm a little more extroverted than I thought I was. And no, this is an incredibly kind community. It's an incredibly diverse community, both in terms of ethnicity, in terms of professional background, community involvement, and family situation. So it is a lovely community. I met so many people and got to talk to so many people, and I can't express how grateful I am to have had this opportunity.
Here with a much better half. Your name?
Amelia.
Amelia, what has this campaign been like for you?
Busy. I've basically been the supporter at home, kept the house kind of running this whole time, but I'm just so proud to see him succeed in this, and that all of his hard work has been so well paid off. I'm thrilled. The whole campaign has just been amazing, the whole experience, and to just see it come to fruition, I'm so happy.
Fantastic. Not enough attention is paid to the support systems that all of you have. After going through this for the last 8 weeks, how has your perspective changed on that?
I have an incredible support system. I married my wife knowing that she is a great person, but the last 4 months of campaigning has actually really solidified that even more, beyond 100%, I guess. And she's, like she said, she's kept the house running. She helped me with my writer's block when I did have writer's block sometimes. She helped me with vetting some of my tweets. And honestly, it's not just her. Also, her family has been wonderful behind the scenes. Much beyond what I expected of them. And I just couldn't express how grateful I am to both Amelia and her family.
Back to business. First item on the agenda as you go.
Oh, already. That's a good question. Get our transportation and public transit working. Try to find ways where we can reallocate our underused resources in public transit especially, so that we can create a more local-friendly public transit system, so that people can get around Barrhaven, people can get to traditionally less served public transit to areas like West Hunt Club, Colonnade, or Carleton, for example.
Councillor-elect Wilson Lowe, congratulations. Thank you for this.
Thank you very much. I had to take a call.
Okay, and Allison, you actually have been doing some observation of our entire night as a whole and found something really interesting in what we are seeing here.
Well, it started off with Chris saying that there were 7 women elected in the last council, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we now have 8 out of, and on track for 9 women, so we now have 2 more women out of 24 ridings that will be sitting on our council at the council table.
And there's one still in play who's leading.
Right, but that Rito Vanier actually has all 3 candidates are women. So we're on track. We will have 9 women sitting at the council table when this is done. So this is great. Great first step. It would be nice to see if we can get some gender parity there eventually, but a good first step for the City of Ottawa.
And we are about to wrap up soon, and we want to thank Derick Fage, who has wrapped up his community panel. He's just over here. Yay! Thank you very much, my friend.
Great job.
And I know you don't have a microphone on, because otherwise we'd bring you in here for the big bow. So we're going to be wrapping up shortly before 10 o'clock. So we just sort of want to have a summary of what happened here tonight. We still have 3 wards in play, and we will find out about that really exciting race in Osgood between a veteran and a sitting councillor, George DeRuse and Doug Thompson. But what we saw here tonight between what we thought was going to be a really close race for mayor, it wasn't that close. Any idea why it wasn't that close? Thoughts?
I think it's a lot of, the silent majority, right? There was a lot of people out there who probably when campaigns knocked on their door, they just didn't disclose or they didn't open the door, right? They didn't take a lawn sign. And, you can't identify that group. So I think probably between the identified vote that each one of the leading mayoral candidates had, it was probably pretty close. But once you factored in that silent majority who just went through the election and consumed content but didn't speak to anybody, clearly we know how they felt.
Yeah. Is this partly because of that suburban downtown divide?
Well, it'll be interesting to watch how, once we get the results in throughout the course of the evening, how exactly that played out, because Ottawa is a city of concentric circles, urban, suburban, exurban, and rural.
Well, and we're so big.
And we're big, right? Yeah. I'm going to be really curious to see as well. I think Sutcliffe, Mayor-elect Sutcliffe, tried to run a campaign that was appealing to federal Liberals and federal Conservatives. And when you add up both of those constituencies, it's about 65 to 70% of the population here in Ottawa.
Okay.
That's a fairly built-in constituency if you can get them out to vote. And it looks like they did a pretty good job tonight.
And the same there, when you go look at the political spectrum, you also look at what Sutcliffe who he was attracting. Yeah. It was the suburban, urban, rural, or suburban, rural voter, as well as the senior voter. And that's a huge proportion of our electorate here in the city. So that's where I'm thinking, he got most of his support, because when I talk to people out where I live, a lot of people, yes, they were impressed by Catherine McKinney and how she stood up for our beliefs during the convoy.
I'm just going to say they.
Sorry. Yes. How they stood up for the beliefs during the convoy occupation.
Totally.
But was they able to convert to understanding what it's like to live in rural Ottawa or suburban Ottawa.
Or suburbia.
Yeah.
Suburbia.
Exactly.
And I mean, if you looked at recent...
Sorry, we're almost out of time.
So if you looked at a recent Nanos poll, top issues, transit reliability, fixing roads, helping residents meet the cost of living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark Sutcliffe's campaign,
Checked
like
off all of
zeroed in on that.
Mayor-elect Sutcliffe tonight. We want to thank all of you for being here with us tonight. We have a mayor-elect. These are interesting times. I want to thank everyone who here at Rogers made us all feel so welcome, and for all of you for being with us. Thank you.